Yeah. Hello, and welcome to the Art of Healthy Retirement. My name is Nancy Schwartz, your host, and I'm excited that you are here and to meet someone very special to my heart. As you know, the Art of Healthy Retirement's podcast goal is twofold. One, to support those business experts who are transforming from a career into healthy retirement, and or business experts who have retired. The format is on Zoom, and we post this on our YouTube channel under my name, Nancy Schwartz. And I love interviewing individuals because we want to focus on how our guests are living or will be living their ideal retirement with health. And no interview is the same. And that's the joy of the discussion, that we are disrupting the way you think about healthy retirement in real time. And each podcast is educational in content and offers inspiration to others by showcasing our guests living life on their own terms. So I'm so excited to introduce to the audience and to say hello again to Theres Kull. And Theres and I know each other from the United States, and Theres is now living in Europe. She is an extraordinary human, and I am sure you're going to find tremendous value in what she brings us. Her business now is about reigniting your sensuality, sexuality, and sovereignty. And I really love this phrase, and these are her words. She's redefining embodied living in midlife and beyond. And she's able to do this because she has quite a scholarly background, a family who was very studious and pushed her when she was very young, but simultaneously she tracked really wanting to study ballet as a professional, which is an extraordinarily hard attack on both sides, the studying and ballet. She also has a lot of physical therapy background, and she eventually married. She had 3 children, which I can't believe she looks so young. How do you have 3 children? But you do somehow, and they're all beautiful and successful. And her husband worked significantly, and they traveled to the various businesses. So finding in many places no visa for herself to work, she really became very familiar with feng shui, which is very interesting because feng shui is about spaces, and her now business is also about people, but in spaces. So I love that part about her. And she also then grew this practice globally to really a leadership coaching practice. So have always been very impressed with Theres. I think she's incredibly grounded and wickedly curious. And so thank you, Theres, so much for spending time with us. And I'm excited to welcome you here to the Art of Healthy Retirement.
Thank you, Nancy. It's been an incredible pleasure for me to be with you after we've been dancing together, and now we get to talk about things that both are dear to our hearts. And thank you for inviting me.
Oh,
I
yes.
really appreciate that. Thank you.
No,
and for your beautiful introduction.
No, it's all true, people. I didn't make it up. It's all true. It could only be written by Theres and her people. So tell us, I'd love to dive into this business that you are leading today, and tell us a little bit about, what is it that you do? Because it's very different than academia or ballet and running a business, which you've done very successfully globally. But more to the point, how did you discover and develop this process, right, that led into becoming this business? We'd love to learn about that.
So the business has really grown out of my own searching, because growing up, and we've talked about this, I felt this pull between having to be a brainy child, but also a child that's very much in her body. And over time, I realized that everything that had to do with the brain and the education, that to be so much more valuable than anything that had to do with my body. And as I grew older, as I got more interested in different and various other topics, I found the same continuum in that. And I always had a necessity for myself, for my body to be valued, to be heard, because if I tried to override that, I would get sick. I would be very unhappy and cranky. And so I tried to find modalities that put more emphasis on the feminine. And I mean the feminine not in a gender as defined by gender. I mean the feminine as an energetic, as something energetic that we all have. We all have masculine and feminine, and it's a spectrum, and we go fluidly between both. But in our world, everything that's more towards the masculine is way more highly valued than what is toward the feminine. And maybe I should explain, the masculine is the directive, it is the linear, it is the penetrative, whereas the feminine is more the feeling, the emotional, the more fluid, the softer. Yes, ask me a question. I'm going off.
No, this is beautiful. So there really was a definitive in your mind that you had to honor yourself, and over time you arrived at that and learned that there's different types of energy, one that's more masculine, which we see in and about the world consistently,
Yes,
still,
so,
and
very much
also, yeah,
Mhm.
and the feminine, right? So I think finding that balance in someone, because everyone has a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and maybe more or less depending on the person, right? So for you, how then did this really, what we talked about was bringing the head and the body together. How did you sew that together? Because I think for myself, I similarly, it's not until I got to this side of the fence, if you will, that I brought both together and was valued. I think that you use a very good word, because it's valued in the world, right? And in my world, and I think if I'm speaking correctly, it was very dominated by the head, right?
Yes.
That you had to have the, as you suggest, the excellence in school, the marks, the companies, and yet we are, and this is a new discovery for myself, and that's why I'm so interested in listening to what you have to say, is, you know, bringing that together. And what was your journey in arriving at it? Oh gosh, it's together. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it all really, really started at some point in my life where I felt I couldn't find my center. I was deeply unhappy with life circumstances and tried very hard to find a way to center myself, also to calm myself. And I tried, at that time, I tried sitting meditation, I tried using all the mantras that I had learned, but nothing helped until I got to a belly dance class. And in that class, I had to use my hips. I had to use my hips. And it's as if everything that had been up here stirring finally sunk into the body. that is really where I started connecting the two through that dance. And the more I practiced that, and the more I looked at the women around me, I found to my surprise that a lot of women were more in that directive space, in that linear space. And looking at them, sometimes it felt like their energy level was about here. I mean, they used all this part, and the lower part felt like dead. And
Mm.
so to me, that became a real desire to explore that further and then bring that to women and invite women to explore these other parts of themselves, because we have all and everything, and it feels using it all is brings so much aliveness and vitality to our lives,
Hmm.
right?
Because the whole being is now
Hmm.
one, right? That's kind of how I'm
Yeah,
thinking about it
yeah,
now, that it's not pieces or
yeah,
parts, but
yeah.
it's a contiguous, as I think you used the word energy, that it's a
Mhm,
contiguous energy,
mhm.
um, which is interesting. So, um, how do you do that? I want to know, how do you connect the mind to the body? What did that look like for you in the belly dancing class? Obviously, something spoke to you
Yes.
there, and how did you know that? And then how do you think about that for your clients, in terms of the many programs that you've written for them?
So, trying to think what was the next step after the belly dance class. I got curious if there were other people out there who would talk more about the
Mm.
feminine principles and how to access them. And there's quite a few beautiful teachers out there who do that. And there is one thing I want to say.
Mhm.
While I focus now on the feminine, I am not by any means dismissing the masculine qualities. And for me, I think now is to find that dance between the two, right? And to be able to do that, a lot of us have to first actually develop those feminine qualities and dive into all of those many facets that we have on that end of the spectrum. And then we can have the dance. Because if we don't use the masculine, we would never get anything done, right?
Exactly.
But how did I develop that? I think it just, does that sound strange? Over time, opened up to that. And clearly, through all the trainings and teachings I have, incorporated all these things. I always say there is really nothing new under the sun. A lot of things have already been done, and many of us who use those just bring them together in our unique way. So, um, but what I've now created is what I call my embodied living framework, which I felt, even though I like all the feminine and the flowing, all of a sudden I've said I need to have a little bit of a framework for the women who are used to working in a more directive
Mm.
way and in a more linear way. So there is something like the riverbank where we then can flow within,
Mhm.
as
I love
the
that.
way.
I love that. Mhm.
So I created these three pillars, the three pillars of intimacy, and the one that it's intimacy with self, it's intimacy with the other, with the people around us, and then the last one is intimacy with our environment. So is our home, or how are we intimate with the world around us, the nature around us? And I look at in the three pillars, we look at everything through the lens of sensuality, of sexuality and sovereignty. And my program now really is for women post-menopausal, if you want, for women who are going through a transition and want something different. I think it's our last, it's not the last, well, our last chapter, one of our last chapters, that we want to live as fully and as alive and as pleasurable as possible.
Yeah, no, I love that. So, so really concentrating on the self, and then talking about the others. So your relationships, if I'm interpreting that, and then really within the environment, how are you operating within that environment, and having a little bit of a runway with this riverbank, which is really cool. And then allowing the waves in the riverbank or the ocean to really be able to move you through life. I think that's really maybe what you're saying, and learning that, right? And I know that we talked about before, and because it's postmenopausal, or in and around that time period for the women that not only did you construct this on yourself and your friends, but also for those that you serve. Take me through how the client understands, who else am I? Because that talks about that riverbank and those waves and the flowing. Who else am I? What is the discovery there?
So the discovery is really one done through the body. So we use a lot of movement. I use what I've been taught in what's called a nonlinear movement method, which is a method that also takes the nervous system into consideration. And it's a method to go inward and sense your body, and then put that into movement. It's not movement on the outside and then go inward, but it's inward and out. And in that state, there is a lot to discover. It's a bit hard to talk about, but I maybe I can give you an example. I just recently had a client, and she found, through the movement, she found an inner strength that she didn't know she had. And I would say that is a facet of who we are too, having the strength and the determination. And what else she found through those movements was, because she learned to discern the signals her body were sending her, she learned to discern where was her body a yes and where was her body a no. And whereas she, before we started working, would schedule 2 meetings at the same time and then run from one to the other, because as many of us do, we think we can't say no. And through the work and really discerning where was she really a yes and where was she really a no, she's no longer doing that at all. She's also said to me, because of that, she goes to her meetings and is very much more assertive than she was before. She doesn't let people, what do you call this? Talk over her or manipulate her. And that has come because we've used movement to discern what her body really wanted to say. And there is no journey the same. It's for every woman, it's different. Right.
And I think, listening to what you're saying is that understanding for her could result in being very freeing in her own power, right? Because she can say, no, I can't do 3 meetings at 3 o'clock or whatever the situation is, but to be, I choose, she has the choice to choose what she wants to do at that moment, right? So
Yes.
yeah, oh, I love that. Lucky client that worked with Theres. Yes, very lucky client.
Well, I'm lucky to work with my clients. It's both ways.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's, I think very much these types of things that are very, the journey's very private and personal, yet at the same time, let's just say I was the client, I would need to open up myself a little
Yes.
bit to be
Yes.
able, so that
Yes.
you could help guide me and move me along. Nancy, have you considered this? Or how about from this perspective? And it may not even be an awareness
No.
that I have experienced, but you've experienced it and you can share that with me. And
I want to say something to that. So I am really, my basic training was is as a coach. And as a coach, I am curious about you. And as a coach, I am not the one directing you. I'm really, I'm curious and hoping through my curious and my questions to open different doors of your awareness.
Mhm.
And there is certainly a part of me that is a facilitator, which is then when I guide you through the movements and I guide you through a practice or a relaxation practice. And then there is a tiny bit of mentorship where I then will, if it's appropriate, say, have you considered this or that? But mainly through the movement and the questions, I let's say this. I let, for example, you come to what is you really want and how you want it. And it may look completely different from what I imagine maybe is good for you. Right? I can't,
Yeah.
that is not something I can do. So it's really based on what do you find within you?
Yeah, the self-discovery, right? The
Yes.
self-discovery on this journey, right? That
Yes.
you're
Yes.
taking them
Which is
through.
which is actually incredibly empowering. And um, you know, we come to these things often because we want to change something or expand something. And what I found is using the movement together with the talk process. Don't want to say solidifies that, but it makes it more real.
Mm.
I think if we only have the talk and not the body that comes along with it, it stays somewhere up here. But this way, you feel really what you want, where you go, what you experience in your body. So it gives you a different, my languages are going through, I think, crosswires here. But it gives you a different experience on something different to work with.
Yeah. So it's different signals perhaps that
Yeah.
the client is receiving because of that. Yeah. No, I love that. And what would be some very simple and actionable tools? Let's just say that for this client that you had or someone else, that our audience could learn from you in terms of lifestyle tools. And I know you work with very, very successful women. I know that a lot of their experience, we've talked about this, is external, but they've seen it all, done it all. So what would be some fundamental tools to sort of bring people back home in terms of something actionable for them?
Mhm. So I think when we talked, I said we were talking about ritual.
Mm-hmm.
Ritual is really something that is so easy to do and simple in your daily life, but it connects you back inside. And a ritual can be very formal. It can have a beginning, and then you do whatever you do, and an end. Or I think a ritual is already getting up in the morning, not touching your phone, having your first cup of coffee, feeling the feet on the floor, looking outside, smelling your coffee or your tea, and then take a sip. And in that moment, connecting with really what's within you. Or you can, very simple, when you go to work, you put a candle on your desk and light the candle. Just as a reminder.
Mm-hmm. A
And
visual.
then a visual, yes.
Visual, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in feng shui, for example, we always use sound. So we had a symbol before we started something. We would use this symbols to know that this is the start of the whatever we were doing. You can do that too.
Mm. I don't know if I was in the office, I'm clinging chimes. I better do it at home before I show up.
Maybe not.
Or I run my own business. I'm an entrepreneur, so no one has to know. So I love it.
Has to know. You can do things that people around you don't notice.
Right. Yeah.
Right. You can use your imagination and do something for that.
Yeah, I think that what you're talking about is really, it has to make sense to you. And I've learned it from the point of view of it's an anchor. So something like a candle or a chime, but something that has this really history with you, that it just sets this so that your system comes back to, its being, if you will, its natural being, right? And calming and grounded. I love that. And we know from a science point of view that these rituals are so important and help with all sorts of processes, either throughout the evening or throughout the day, whenever some people anchor the day. It just depends on what they're doing. But we know that it really can define you as to what it is that you're doing. So
I like that you use the word anchoring, because that's what it is. It gives your body a signal, and it anchors your body, and it helps to release actually some of the stress in your body. Anchors.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. So let's go back to this word that you've used before, which is energy, and increasing your energetic flow. And how do we know if we have it, or how do we go get it? How is that taught for someone who says, I want to find that, but where would I start? What's the first step?
I think, how do we know we have it? I don't know if we really know we have it if we're not used to working with our body. Don't think that sometimes we're really aware that many times we're a little bit numb. But what I do a lot, and I'd be happy to do with you if you want, is bringing the energy down into the lower part of our body. And that I do with very simple hip movements, and be happy to show you if you think you're up to. Shall we do that?
I'm up to anything. I'm up to anything.
All right, then I'm going to turn my camera and go into my one corner here so you can see me. And
okay. Great. And then I will try to practice over here. I have a little space.
Chair. You can practice in your chair. You know enough.
Oh, okay. I can practice in my chair. Okay, great.
Can you see me?
Perfect.
Good. So what I do with my clients when we first start out, I let them stand, I let them feel the floor underneath their feet. Ask them to loosen their knees and their shoulders, and just for a moment close their eyes and take a scan through their body and see, can they feel something? What do they feel? And then, very simple, I ask them to rub their hands to generate a little bit of warmth. And then we rub our groin area on our pelvis area in the front and in the back. And then we rub again. And we rub our hip, our whole hip area, and still keeping the knees a little bit bent. So we create a bit of warmth and more awareness to this area of our body. And for us women, our, what should I call it, power center, our gravity and power center, it really is in this part of our body. And then I'm gonna put my shirt up. You can put your hands on your hips, and you can just start move your pelvis forward and backward. Can you see that?
Yes.
I can't see.
Yeah, no, I see. Yeah.
And if you can, you leave your eyes closed and just feel what that's like, going forward and backwards. And still with your hips, with your knees slightly bent. And then you can start making hip circles. One direction, in the other direction. And when you set all day, you don't want to try to force those, because then usually the hips are a bit tight. But as you go, maybe they get looser. And you can make the circles bigger, really big. Just however you want to feel, however you feel, to change direction. You can make figure eights. And still with your knees slightly bent.
Okay.
And so you do this for a little bit, and you can feel how your thighs will warm up. And this whole area will warm up. And then if you're adventurous, you put a little piece of music on and continue with this and add your whole body to it. And it doesn't have to be, it's not a dance or a performance, nobody has to see. It's just so that you get your body moving without thinking. And then after a while, you come back to standstill. Take stock of your body now. What does it feel now? Is it different? And then you give yourself a gesture and a thank you, and end the little exercise. So that is usually how I start with when women come, just to get awareness further down into the body. And that's something really easy that we can do every day. You can even do it in the office, right? You can go into the bathroom and close the door and do a couple hip circles, which then will help, I think, interrupt that directive thinking that we have to do and give it a bit of a counterbalance.
Yeah, no, thank you. I love this exercise. And when we really think about day-to-day movement, I was just thinking while you were doing this, okay, I'm sitting a lot, so I feel cut off, right, at my midsection. And even if I'm walking, the best exercise there is, or various other types of sport, not all include this rotation of the hips. And so for people trying to find their center like this, it's very valuable information that Theres has just, I could see how if you did it multiple times, you really could dial in very, very quickly as to the flow, not only up and down, like the linear, but more the wave types, around the body, the outsides of the body, or the insides, where your legs are coming. Think about the hip bone itself. There's a lot of dynamic there that I don't think we address, or at least I don't. I'll speak for myself.
No,
I don't address on a daily basis.
I think many of us don't. I think this is really, it's that circling and spiraling is quite different from walking or yoga or working out, right? Where we're in a way directional again.
Yes.
And this takes us away from that, because it's I would say it's in that sense a bit unstructured. Or if you go in and do another dance, it certainly is unstructured. Doesn't matter what you look like. It really then is how does it make you feel?
Right. And therein the freedom. And that's where the energy comes. Yes. Yeah. No, I love this. Well, Theres, thank you so much for all the education and for the live demonstration, which was very exciting. Tell us any final words that we can hear from your brilliance today.
Well, I don't know, but this is a pleasure, and I love talking with you about this. The conversation we've had in preparation for this, the conversation now, it's been really pleasurable. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness, we're thrilled that you can spend time with us. And Theres, if somebody wanted to reach out to you directly for your programs or one-on-one, where do they go? And
so the easiest would be to go to my website, which is thereskull.com. And you said you would put that in the show notes, so then I don't have to spell it.
Yes, we will put this definitely in the show notes where you can reach Theres. And we're laughing because in a class that we took, there was a Teresa, there was a Theres, and I think there was somebody else. There were 3 T's in that one class. The teacher was struggling. Yes. Yes.
So on my website, there is a contact form. I'm in the process of changing certain things on the website. So the best way is to use the contact form to get in touch with me. And then I will respond within 24 to 48 hours for sure.
Wonderful.
You can ask me anything, really.
Awesome. What an opportunity. So Theres, thank you so much for being here today. We're so thrilled that we finally made this connection. And people definitely go to Theres's website and fill out her contact form if it's something of interest or you have questions for her. And we will continue this conversation. So thank you, Theres. Wishing everybody a great day. And thank you, everyone, for listening to The Art of Healthy Retirement with my special guest, Theres Kull, today. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.